So it seems in the past few years, the bodybuilding world has finally woken up to biomechanics, anatomy, science, research, and actually being smart with our training. And alongside that has also come an understanding of the actual functions of muscles and what they are designed to do within the body. For example, the quadriceps role is to extend the knee to straighten the leg. And when we ask ourselves, right, how can we lengthen this muscle as much as possible? The answer is quite simply to maximally bend the knee as much as we possibly fucking can. However, in this bid to create maximal knee flexion, we've now got people doing the hack squat, the pendulum, the leg press with their heels purposely rising, going up onto the balls of their feet and pressing through their toes in order to create this maximal knee flexion. So in this video, I'm going to be answering the question, should you be raising your heels and squatting on your toes in order to get bigger quads? Now, it's important when answering this question, we start with the basics. We'll start with the anatomy of the knee joint. So the knee is a hinge joint, as we know, compared to something like the hip or the shoulder. It's got a lot less range of motion. A hinge joint means quite literally what it fucking says on the tin. It's a hinge joint. Like the hinge on a door, it only opens and closes. It goes forwards and backwards, the knee bends and extends. And that's about as much as it does. But what people are failing to realize is that the body doesn't work in isolation. So yes, the knee joint might just flex and extend, but there's a lot more going on further up and down the chain in order to facilitate the knee bending. For example, when you lift your arm up in the air like this, your shoulder goes into flexion. But there's also other things going on. Your shoulder blade, your scapula, attaches to your shoulder joint, and when you lift your arm up in the air like this, your scapula has to upwardly rotate in order to accommodate that movement and to go into flexion. So in order for the knee to bend effectively, properly, whatever term you want to use, we need to look at what else is going on further down the chain. So we'll start with the foot. The foot is very similar to the hand in a lot of sensory input comes through the feet and the hands. So obviously whenever you press, it's your hands that's in contact. Whenever you squat, leg press, whatever, it's your foot that makes contact first. So in order for your knee to bend properly, what we need is for your foot to be able to flatten and pronate. If you think about surface area, and when you're applying force to something, in order for you to apply a large amount of force, we want a large surface area. So think about a pin, a needle. If you press through a needle with a lot of force, it's not going to be able to spread across a large surface area because you've literally got that tiny end of the needle. However, if we have got a large surface area, so if we've got like a brick and we press through a brick, we can apply a lot more force. So your foot needs to flatten to give it a large surface area, and also so that your shin bone, your tibia, can actually internally rotate, and then your knee can bend properly. So yes, your knee is a hinge joint, but whenever it comes to any joint in the body, we need to zoom out a little bit and look at what else is going on. And very often, there's some form of rotation going on elsewhere in order to facilitate what is happening at that joint. Now you might be thinking, but there's all these bodybuilders, all these lads I see squatting with their heels raised and just pressing through their toes. If the knee can't bend properly without that full foot pressure, well, how are they still doing it? At the end of the day, if you've got 4 or 5 plates on a fucking hack squat or a leg press, and you're trying to bend your knee is going to bend. And I know this because about a year or 2 ago, I think it was about 2 years ago, I rolled my ankle playing football. I was playing 7-a-side football, rolled my ankle, and every week after I rolled my ankle that one time, it would go. It would go every single week, and I would roll it with that just by changing direction. And after that point, my ankle and my foot on my left side became a lot weaker. And what I didn't realize at the time was because my ankle and foot had become a lot weaker, I struggled to get my ankle, or my foot, sorry, to actually flatten and pronate. Now this was also around about the time when I started to learn about the fact that if you want bigger quads, you need to basically lengthen the quads as much as possible by going through as much knee flexion as you possibly can. So what did I do? I went and bought myself a pair of squat shoes. Squat shoes, if you don't already know, have got a heel on them. When we raise up the heels, we can then get deeper and deeper into even more knee flexion. So what did I do? For about 2 years, I put my squat shoes on, I allowed my heels to raise even more, and I would place 4 or 5 plates on the hack squat and basically allow all of that weight to pull me into some serious amounts of knee flexion. Did my quads grow? Yes, they did. However, what did I also experience with this? Well, anytime I tried to bend my left knee, it would click. Now, it wasn't a painful clicking, but it's just fucking annoying. Every time, the day after I would squat, I would get this pain in the back of my calf, which I did not know why. And some days the pain was actually, I was in agony, basically. And so I reached a point where anytime I would do a leg press, a leg extension, or a squat, I would get the clicking in the outside of my left knee, and I would also, the following day, just get this pain in the back of my calf, which took a good few days to actually go away. And had I got the knowledge which I've got now about foot pressure, about the way the knee should actually bend, I could have avoided all of that pain and got to the point where I'm at now, where I'm able to squat pain-free, the clicking has gone completely, and I've managed to absolutely blow my quads up, my quads, adductors, glutes, in the space of just 3 months, just from focusing more on foot pressure and allowing my knee to bend properly, as opposed to forcing it into as much knee flexion as possible. So the way I like to think of foot pressure and how the foot should move is like a tripod. So you've got your heel, which is the bottom of the tripod, you've got your big toe and sort of like the ball of your foot, and then you've also got sort of like just under your pinky toe and the outside of your foot. So that is like a tripod, right? And we want to make sure whenever we're doing, and this doesn't just apply to squatting variants, this also applies to hinge variants. So whenever you're doing any sort of hip thrust or RDL, that you also want to be focused on foot pressure when you're doing those as well, because in order for your hip to internally rotate, which is what we actually need for us to hinge properly, we need full foot pressure again. And although I might have my own success story, being able to blow my quads up, being able to get rid of the knee pain, the knee clicking, I've also done this with clients. I've had a client who came to me about 2 or 3 months ago. He had knee pain to the point where he couldn't even perform leg extensions without pain. He couldn't squat. He had to reduce his load massively. And his previous coach had just told him, right, we're just going to avoid the exercises which hurt it. Great, brilliant. We'll just slap a plaster on it, basically. And all he did, came to me, I got him to focus on full foot pressure when he's performing his movements, and all of a sudden, 3 months later, he's almost catching me up on dumbbell split squats, and he weighs 60 kilos and I weigh 90. That's the point we've been able to get him to in just the space of a couple of months. Now, are there some bodybuilders who, yes, have managed to build absolutely fucking humongous quads by using this method? Yes, there are. However, how long is it going to be until these bodybuilders start to run into knee, hip, ankle, foot issues? We don't know. Those people might have really resilient joints and they might be able to tolerate that amount of load going through those joints. There are genetic freaks when it comes to muscles. There are also genetic freaks when it comes to joints as well. Why do you think there's some people who, for example, have got great ankle mobility, who can just drop right down into a squat really easily, whereas some people really, really struggle? We're all built slightly differently. We're a lot more similar than what some people make out, but we're also different in some parts. So yes, these people might be able to build huge quads by doing that, but how long will it last? There's a certain bodybuilder, I'm not going to name any names, who I see doing this all the time. They will hack squat, pendulum squat, leg press with their heels rising right up, just pressing through the balls of their feet, and that person actually has knee problems. I'm pretty sure they have to do single leg extensions unilaterally because their knee hurts that bad, because they can't do it, bilaterally, both at the same time. And if that person just focused on full foot pressure and squatting properly, in my opinion, the knee pain would very quickly start to subside, or at least improve. And so to answer the question, should you allow your heels to rise whenever you're doing any squats or leg presses? I mean, I've presented the information. It's completely up to you as to whether you want to go away, try it for yourself, And don't just give it a week or two, try it for a good 3 months. Really focus on allowing, as you squat down, that foot to flatten. So you've got obviously the arch in your foot. If you allow that arch to flatten, to give yourself as much surface area as possible, so that your tibia can internally rotate, so that your knee can actually bend properly, as opposed to just forcing it into knee flexion, watch any sort of hip, knee, foot problems that you have go away, disappear within a couple of weeks or a couple of months.